Well, welcome. Once again, as we shared last meeting, we've kind of cleaned up that checklist. I think Zach's got some of those we can pass around and kind of the template. But we were looking at starting to assign people to writing certain sections. If you had preferences, we kind of broke it up into, we'll see how doable it is, but if we broke it up into 6 sections, there's 12 people, 2 people per section. So you would write one of the we like it and one of the why we don't like it. Mm-hmm. That was our thought. If it works out differently or more than one, but we kind of grouped them together. We can debate, whether things in the right categories or not, but just trying to get it down to 6 sections. So if 12 people divided by 2 for each one, you're only on 1 in the top and 1 in the bottom. So that's kind of how we had broken it up. I'm sure there's going to be more than one section 3 or 4 people want to work on it, and there's going to be sections that nobody wants to work on it. But we'll kind of just try to divvy it up and have everybody write up a little bit of a section. So we were going to kind of start going through that, and then I don't think it needs to be as comprehensive of a discussion on the why we didn't like it, but I think there was reasons behind certain things that would help any future board to have information on it. Is, well, we didn't like this because it had fences. While the group may or may not be opposed to tennis courts, you wanted less fencing and everything else. So if there was something in the future that didn't have that, at least it kind of gives a future board or future committee a little more insight on the hows and whys, and if there's something to work around that. So we're kind of going to do all of our formal stuff here at the beginning, and then break up. So then we'll be done taping and PCTV can go home. So we're kind of, they're videotaping this part of it. I know we've gotten Kelly sent in some of her preferred sections. I know you heard from Jenny. I didn't see Beth's comment, but maybe that one just came in as she was out. We can tentatively pencil people in, with those sections as well. But I don't know how you want to do it. If we got to go around and section 1 and everybody who's interested in that put their hand up, and we find 2 people and we can rock, paper, scissors it out, or flip a coin for who wins.
I think it'd be good just for you guys, whoever is interested, have a discussion about it and see if there's a second choice you have, keep that in mind as you go through it.
Yeah, and if it
like you would a group project in school.
So
and I know I have Jenny's and I have Susan's.
Okay.
So as we get thrown, I can put theirs out there right now, or we can start by going through group 1 and seeing who wants that, and go from there. However you guys would like to do
I don't know
that.
if there's a better way to do it, but that's kind of how we had just thought, just to kind of divide it up. And then if people want to stay here and you and your partner pick a spot at a table and start kind of writing and drafting stuff up, we brought maps here. We can put maps up on the screen to kind of help you focus in on it. We'll be here as staff to...
Are there 12? You want sign-ups for these too?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we figured 12 people, if 2 per each category. Basically, you've got one of the we like it and one of the we don't like it sections.
So you want you want volunteers for both sections?
Yes. Yeah, and I would see having more right up for the top half of the stuff we like and support. The bottom, at least we can, if somebody comes back and says, hey, you never talked about, a skate park, at least we've got, the committee looked at all the comments, responded to all the comments, and, shared a little insight of why or why not, or what some of the concerns were with that.
I'll go around the table.
Well, that's weird. I was just kind of going to go by category and see, number 1, and if 2 people raise their hand, great, you've got it. If there's more than that, we can, or if you've got preferences ahead of time.
Go for it.
Let's just go group by group.
Okay, so under the recommended land uses, group 1, multi-use paths, handicap accessible paths, and mountain biking. I see 2 hands up. 1, 2.
You too? I would never guess that. Interesting.
Trails and mountain biking.
I wasn't even gonna try for that one.
Okay. Any objections? Going once, going twice?
I have one question, and not about those 2 being on it, but wouldn't cross-country skiing and snowshoeing really be part of that?
I was thinking that too.
It seems like it's more of an overlap with.
And it can be,
Actually, 1 and 2 could be one group if you
Right.
if personally, if you had.
and we kind of just grouped them up, but I mean, if
That's
that's,
the most important, maybe we need 4 people writing it.
Or even just, or even just a third, maybe.
if you've got 2 groups, and if the 2 groups want to pair together and write them all together,
Yeah.
I've got no opposition to that. So if people have interested in number 2, and, Bob's real interested in cross-country skiing, and he wants to be part of it, and you guys kind of want to write those 2 groups together, yeah, have at it. And, I say we kind of arbitrarily just try to say, well, these have some similarities, or these got some synergy with it, pair them up. But, and then at the end, we'll come back together, and everybody's going to have a chance to review what's been done. So it's not like, well, I'm not on category 1, but I'd like to see it or have some input on it. The whole group will have opportunity. We're just kind of trying to create a straw man that at least have something down there and something on paper, and then we can tweak it and review it as a group and put it out there ahead of time to go through it. So let me write down Terry and Eric for the first one, and then maybe 2 has synergy with 1. And
Who were the 2 that had the emails? Did they say where their preferences were?
Susan did, I know.
Sue's emailed.
It was 3 and 4.
Sue said, what was her first one? She said she was like 3 or 4, and then she liked 7 or 8 for the dislikes. And then you have Ginny. And Ginny, like, she was interested in number 4, and then on the nose she was 8, 10, or 12 on the nose.
Sorry, which ones were they?
4.
I'm trying to tentatively.
Yep,
just-
that's fine, that's
Yep.
a good idea.
Yeah, Ginny was number 4, and then 8, 10, and 12. So, number 2, any interest in group number 2?
I just have a question. How much needs to be done for snowshoeing? To me, that's like, yeah, we allow it on the property.
Right.
I think that's very light, and then maybe that's why 1 and 2 can kind of go together and just
Right.
say,
I mean,
the group is supportive of snowshoeing and...
The orienteering course, yeah, I get that there's going to be some work into that.
Yep.
But if we have somebody who's already said, we'll do the cross-country ski trails, and then snowshoeing, you seem like you're done.
It makes a lot of synergy to be 1 and 2 combined together, to do those groups kind of as one. So maybe those are big sections. I mean, mountain biking, Beth, I would assume would have interest in.
I almost think combine those 2,
So
and
if we
number
put-
3 can almost be divided into multiples. There's a lot on number 3.
And I'd
Yeah.
probably include orienteering in number 3 instead of,
We can do that.
because generally it's not trail related.
Right.
It's-
Yeah.
Change every time, really.
Yeah, it can, although you would, at some point, they would likely have more permanent markers, kind of like disc golf would have maybe more
Yeah.
permanent holes.
So is group 1's people's happy, okay, if we add snowshoeing and cross-country skiing to your...
And maybe add a third
I'm
person
fine
there.
with that, I
Right.
think we should have a third or
And I
fourth
say,
person.
is
Yeah.
Beth may be interested in that one if...
I think
want
Beth would definitely be interested in mountain biking.
choose for her, so if number 1, we add those 2 and then add a third person on that one.
Mhm.
And then add orienteering to 3, and then maybe we have
You're gonna have to do that, sorry.
2 or 3 people.
I know, I'm just
We
gonna.
can clean this up later, but
Right.
this was just at least to get us started. Okay. So number 3, we'll add orienteering into that down
Shadings
through
under the font.
spray parks.
Yeah,
Kelly?
I think we do 3.
Kelly and Jeff. Anyone else?
Sue said she'd like to do that.
Yep.
Um,
That's a bigger category. We can add Sue into that one.
Right. Maybe even a 4th person too, to be honest with you. That's a big one. We'll see how it,
We'll see how the other
Yeah, let's go
ones
through
play
and then
out.
see who's left or who hasn't been assigned. And okay, anyone else interested in now group 2? Gotta update my sheet. Okay, group. No, 4 on your screen.
Say, do you wanna be-
3. I'm sorry, what?
He changed the number to 2, so I'm just saying 2
Oh, okay,
on your screen,
gotcha.
3 on the
We're
paper.
gonna live update as we go, so don't go too fast.
You go too fast, we can't keep up with it.
I would like to do 4 on the screen.
I'm on 4.
4 on the screen?
4 too.
So we've got Tricia and Bob. And then
Sue's on too, so you can take her off the four there.
Ginny was interested in,
Yeah, that was the one she specifically
had interest in it.
had interest in, so I'd leave her on that.
Okay. And then community garden.
I can do that one too.
Let's see who else we've
Or
got.
do we do
Those-
two up above, right?
One up above.
Oh, one up above?
One up above
Oh,
and
okay,
one down.
then,
You're done.
But I mean, if you've
then I
got
guess I'm
interest
done, or, unless somebody else has, unless we don't have anybody
We only
else.
need first names, there's no duplicates.
unless you're copy and pasting or whatever.
You could put those last two together, maybe, they're not, that don't seem to.
Yeah, vegetative
need a lot of
buffer
work.
Yeah.
may not be a whole.
When we organized this, it wasn't solely based on the amount of work, it was
Right.
just trying to keep the topics
Just to get-
separate.
Sure,
So-
sure.
For writing it, that's.
So we've got Ryan, Steve left, and Lance. I'm sorry, you're here.
I was waiting to see where everybody else wanted to be. So.
Yeah. That one.
Did you have a preference in any
That one
of
we've
it?
got
Not particularly, no.
Okay.
Who do we have in two?
Kelly and Jeff. And then I say we could add a fourth person to that group. Now that one's kind of got bigger, and if we combine the last two together, we don't have Steve and we don't have Ryan on a list. We can pencil them in for that one for now.
Fair.
Lance,
Yep.
do you have a?
I can jump in the fourth for the number two if that's what you want to do.
I mean, it's up to you guys.
That one feels like it's gonna have a fair amount of writing, because there's just so many different.
There's a scattering of topics on that one
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
are a little more varied. Okay, well, we'll pencil Ryan and Steve on the last one for now, and then see if they totally hate it or something, but there's also credit for showing up, too.
Yeah.
Like I said, you can put where you want when you miss a meeting. Hey, I was pub master for 4 years because I missed a meeting.
So, did I miss anybody? I think we've got everybody here in a category. And I think we put the other two in a category.
How many of us are there?
There's 12.
You got 12.
And now we're down to 4 categories. So there should be, there's 2 in one and 4 in another, so average out 3. And I say we can, obviously we'll clean this up and send this off to each group of who's in which slot. For tonight, you can kind of just make markups on your sheet. Everybody happy with what they've got and where they're at? Okay. Let's go down to the bottom section. So these are the ones that were not recommended by the group.
Before you go too far, is there anything you guys would like to combine? And then we can start sorting things out, or split. And again, this part won't involve a ton of writing. It's, as Mark said, to show that the committee has reviewed it.
Some
and
justification.
Justifications
why it
exactly
was
why.
I
turned
mean, you
down.
don't have to get into costs and how it could be accomplished and all that stuff, because obviously if the group's not supportive, like off-leash dog park, I don't think needs to be on its own, and cemetery may not be in the zone. That category number 9, we can break it up. We were just kind of categorizing the topics that may be similar. but
I'll
we
raise
can-
my hand for 7.
7.
I feel like there's almost a boilerplate statement that could be made that would cover almost everything here. Somebody words.
So you're done with it, Bob? Good job.
It has to do with the present comprehensive plan, which identifies Shadow Pines as recreational and sanctuary space. So
Right.
putting buildings there is pretty much a no-go, at least according to that plan. You know,
And also, I think the things that we picked were things that were minimal impact to the land and
Right.
the environment and easily reversed.
the one I'm got no background on is the solar field. I guess the reason for that was we have a solar field, right?
A rather large one, yeah.
Yeah, we have
We
one over here,
didn't
but
see the need for a second one. Is that?
I think not at this time.
Yeah, plus I think it was aesthetics and,
Yeah, aesthetics and.
it was meant to be a park, like you said, enjoyable, and that kind of
Right.
limits it to what it can be used for in the future.
I could use some help. Oh, I got Sue, okay, good.
Yeah, Sue had interest in that one.
I'm gonna take her off of the next one then.
Yeah, we won't put her on multiples if somebody's got. Anybody else interested in 7? I say 9. I think we'll break 9 up a little bit and combine it. There's a whole lot in that category and kind of split it up a little bit. Anybody for 8? Commercial mixed-use development, residential development. I don't know how
I could do that.
cemetery pairs in with that, but that's kind of a.
Jenny's on
You
it.
can add
A one-off
cemetery
and-
into that, yeah.
Right.
And then
And just take Bob's statement that he had and you're done.
Yeah.
Same statement.
Just wait for Bob to finish.
Ditto, ditto.
I had nothing to do with the comprehensive plan.
That's right. All right.
What he said, just say what he said.
Any other ones we should put in with that category? Number 9. Any interest? Kelly?
I'll do 9.
Kelly, Eric? Is there any ones you don't want to talk about?
But do we have to talk about everything on the list?
We should at least mention it. And
Really? Everything on the list? Okay.
At least we
Start
can
with a
say-
list of it, and you'll, I mean, this is, there's an outline in
Yep.
here, and it's gonna change based on how we just regroup things,
Mhm.
but again,
Could be a
there's just headings to tell
Could be
you.
a sentence or 2
what type of
sentences just
topics.
saying, you know, but I think a little reason, the skate park, the group was opposed to a skate park just due to the overall aesthetics of it, the intensity, and the possibility of kids being injured, you know, at least so if
Right.
it went forward and somewhere in the future there's a skate park that's not that and it's,
Gotcha.
you know, something different, at least you can kind of have the mindset of kind of why it was not considered or what consideration of. We talked about the golf course last time, or excuse me, the driving range. I think the group was supportive, and I think some words of saying the group was not supportive of a driving range itself, but the group, you know, was okay, or at least wasn't opposed to having a golf pro on site, use a building and have a putting green. That gives a future board, you know, it's not golf altogether as opposed, it's just a driving range was not in the group for the reasons of taking up too much space. And you can have a virtual driving range, you could have other things that, you know, may fit that in the future.
The part about
Possibility.
turning the driving range 90 degrees and taking all those trees down was a showstopper for
And
me.
that's some of the, and now when we have more comments about it saying, you know, impacting trees, maybe if it was kept along the road and, you know, just some more parameters, so if it comes back up again down the road, they kind of understand the whys and whats of,
Basically,
what you were
ultimately
thinking.
trying not to group everything into one and having a
Mhm.
flat statement.
Right.
Obviously,
Right.
they're in this category for a reason, enhance it a little bit, and then move on to the next one.
we have anybody else for 9? That's a pretty big category right now for 2 people.
Or did you guys want to talk about splitting it up somehow into 2 separate groups?
Yeah, it's-
I think if we just throw another person or 2 on there, then
I'll go.
we can figure
I'll
out
jump
how to
in
break
there.
it out.
Vance?
I think that's fair.
If you need another one, I'll do it.
Okay.
You think we need 4?
So we got 4, we got 2 on the first one, 2 on the second one. Leaves us conservatory, outdoor
Jeff,
art exhibits.
On dog park?
No, but we're not yet.
I'd say we paired dog park with conservatory and outdoor indoor exhibits and
Group that all together.
Steve and Ryan.
Great job,
None
guys.
opposed?
Anyone opposed to that? Raise your hands and Ryan.
Is there anybody else missing that we
I
don't?
don't have a group yet, so I jump in.
Beth?
I don't,
Yeah, Beth is in
I
there.
Oh,
don't need to
you
be
Beth.
down
I don't think that's it.
I don't have
Beth and
any.
Terry. Terry's looking for a
Terry,
spot
what do
to
you,
be.
which spot would you
there.
like
I don't
there?
know, I'd probably, maybe back up in 7.
7? Okay.
We need another person there anyway.
Terry there, and then,
We don't need 5 in a group, so.
no,
Let's put Beth down there and then she. I think it's everybody.
conservatory, off-leash dog park.
We just gotta do, let's start at 5, 6, 7, 8 is gonna be the new numbers.
Yeah, we'll change the numbers around, so don't refer to yourself as group 10, it won't exist anymore, but
Doesn't anymore.
what do we think?
There was some general recommendations that were made about the property too that would be good to address. Like, I heard a lot of comments, several people that commented, keep it green and wild, but mow it once a year. Stuff like that. And I feel like we should have some kind of response to that. Like, are we going to recommend that the town mows all the green space, or are we going to let trees grow in? What's the kind of the long-term feeling on that kind of stuff?
Would you?
I think you ought to write that kind of stuff down, and at some point, we're going to be sharing emails, I think, on all the sections, and,
Yeah, I think as you're
Maybe
writing
that
your
could be
section,
a-
those things come
Yeah, we
up.
also
Summary or
spoke
something
about
like that.
sidewalks and entrances,
Right.
and that kind
Yeah.
Yeah,
of
there's
thing.
lots of, things that come to mind if we capture them in the...
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely, yeah.
The little parking lot,
I
and
think
then as we
that's-
come back
yeah.
together, we
That
can
should be in there. That kind of
address
stuff.
those.
Gives a little bit of the context of what we think is the right use.
I don't know that we really discussed that as a group, though, what our thoughts are on, do we want to see it mowed? Do we want to see it grow in naturally? Do we want to see additional trees planted? I mean, where do we fall as a group on that particular thing?
I think we talked about mowing near the pavilion or around the pavilions to allow people to pick up, sports.
I think it really depends on what they do before they can figure out what they need to mow. Because if you have the pass, you're going to want some of that mowed, but maybe not all of it. But if you have fields, obviously they have to be mowed, like they do the sports fields.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
And we might want to recommend mowing around the paths also for tick control.
Mhm.
And some of that
People are
may
really
come out
worried
of the
about that.
landscaping too, depending on what they do with
What they do with everything else, yeah.
Yeah, so it may be ongoing maintenance of the property, I guess, in some phrase or something that would...
Was there some thought about replanting trees?
Oh, I'm just
Take so
wondering,
many
like,
down, but
because
it
there was requests made to do a handful of different things, and I don't know that we really said, for the whole property, here's what we would recommend.
Yeah.
Yeah, there might be a catch-all somewhere that we could put some of this.
That's kind of what I'm thinking, is
Yeah.
just some of those general recommendations about that.
It was mentioned at the Saturday indoor hike that we had that some funds might be raised by having trees dedicated in memory of someone, or benches, or that kind of thing, which,
Yeah.
seems like it would make sense and would help the income to the property. So
Yeah.
that kind of thing could be in a catch-all. Certainly, we wouldn't be opposed to it, or we'd be in favor of considering that kind of thing. Could go into one bucket.
Well, and Eric, in looking at your map that you sent out, with the outskirt of the trails, a lot of those trees don't even exist anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's hard to...
Yeah, unfortunately, the most recent aerial photography was not very nice for laying down a
Right.
path over, so I picked a slightly older
Yeah.
image. But again, that's all conceptual, and designing a trail system would take a lot more.
Before
work
jumping
and time.
into your pictures, the
Yeah.
one thing I would add to the topic you started about the maintenance and trees and mowing and green space. We have this topic of the vegetated buffers. Would you like to enhance that topic to perhaps
I was thinking
include
that too.
those items in there so
That
it
might
has
be, yeah.
so it has a
That's a good
place
idea.
for you to address it,
Somebody ought to
as
address
opposed
that,
to
yeah.
kind of briefly touching on each topic, right?
I actually thought it would fit more with number 2. That's kind of more general,
that's
I
a
guess.
lot. I think that's a big
There's a
part
lot,
of it,
yeah, I
though.
get
That's-
When you're talking about general maintenance, that
Yeah.
is a big topic.
Yeah. Because I mean, just for example, I personally don't think that the town should be mowing all of the open space. I mean, it would, even just once a year, it would be really costly to do that. I gotta imagine it would go through mowers a lot quicker than that grass is like a foot and a half
Yeah,
tall right
and they
now.
do that. They did that for the golf course, though.
Yeah, well, they
twice
consistently did it.
3 or 4 times a week.
Yeah.
I mean, it's I think it's doable. If you had the right
I think
equipment.
the idea was to keep trees from growing, to keep so you
Right,
have
that's-
fields.
that's
It
one
was
of the-
like brush, with,
Invasive species
Yeah.
of, yeah,
yeah, to keep the,
start getting vines and some of that stuff.
Thank you, Doug.
But one of the other things is like all of the sand traps, those have all kind of sunk in and they haven't been maintained. Does it make sense to recommend that the town go out there and kind of fill them in or something like that, just so that there's not these kind of big,
Danger point.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a danger point, yeah.
they're also pretty unsightly.
imagine eventually they'll weed over though.
Eventually,
I think
yeah,
they've
but-
got a good start too.
But they could be fairly dangerous because they are like a drop off rather than a rolling hill. A
Yeah.
lot of them drop right off.
That works. Keep it there for now.
But,
Let's see if those guys can come up with something with groundskeeping. I think it's a fair point that hopefully they watch this, and I'll send the usual follow-up email to remind them. But to talk about that, where it would include those type of topics and kind of those first thoughts. And hopefully at our next meeting, everyone's here in attendance, and if there's an opportunity, there will be an opportunity for everyone to come together, talk as a group, and then if you need more time, just go in your subgroups to work out more of the details for these, you can do that, but to get everyone's opinion on that's a good idea.
I think it's going to weave its way through some of the stuff I can see on trails. You're going to want to say, mowing a 3-foot path along the sides of the trails to
or
keep
something.
stuff down as part of the mountain biking general maintenance. So I think some general maintenance is going to kind of
Yeah.
weave its way through the other topics, but yeah, we can have kind of an overall discussion for the.
And to add on to that, if you look in your outlines, the second piece of paper I handed you, the packet, you go to like page 3. So what we did in there, and again, I'll clean this up based on tonight's conversation, but there's 4 subheadings for each group. You have description of the land use, funding and or support of the land uses, implementation of land use, opportunities and constraints. Part of your implementation for these groups may include some of this initial maintenance that might be required, and you could talk about as a constraint or as continued operations of what it would take to keep those uses going in terms of groundskeeping and maintenance. Leave that up to you guys if that comes up in your conversations, but you can always find an area to add that in. If you need to add another topic in here, a subheading, feel free to. This is just based on your charge. We gave you this outline to help start the process.
The only thing I don't see a place for is sidewalks to, access the park from neighborhoods around it.
And that may be, Eric briefly touched on that may be an overall topic or something at the
Okay.
end, or, access to the park, the general maintenance, those might be some kind of overall categories that, we can kind of
Go in
look at
there, number
around.
4.
Okay, as I thought we just grouped like the groundskeeping with
I mean, we could add that into the last one too,
Number
is,
4, yeah.
put it in number 4 is, future access, connections,
accessibility
to accessibility, and
yeah.
that may be good to go with the groundskeeping and the
Just do
maintenance.
groundskeeping and accessibility, or add a 4th line if you want.
I think they're different things, so groundskeeping and a sidewalk is pretty different.
Any other discussion points before we kind of wrap up our formal section of tonight's meeting? So from here, we figured you guys could break up. If you want to stay here and work, start your stuff in the corner, stay at the table, pick a corner, whatever you want to do. You can go home and start writing on your own, but at least to kind of start getting some of that, the meat and potatoes in with it. Obviously, we'll be here, we have maps, we have other stuff if you want as reference. We can get other additional information as needed, but kind of looking at it in 2 weeks when we come back, email us if you have questions in between now and then. Obviously, we'll let Ryan, Steve, and the others know that aren't here tonight, kind of what sections they have, and if they have major issues, we'll follow up, but kind of start writing on your section and come back in 2 weeks with at least some kind of basic stuff. We can throw them up on the screen, so either email them to us ahead of time, bring it on a flash drive, write it down, and we can scan it and project it up or something, but at least we can kind of start talking about it and see where people are going with it, and kind of start to flesh it out a little bit more. Does that sound
I just have a
reasonable?
just a clarifying question. So we're supposed to fill out this template by group, correct? Not by each individual thing.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Within that, you can address the individual things, but not each individual thing needs that.
Okay.
So you're talking
Response.
individual
Needs all
person.
4 things. Okay.
Yeah,
Got
so I mean,
it.
as a group, hopefully you guys can meet together and come to a general consensus of a group of kind of what you're,
That's why it says
Thought was
description of
back
land
and-
uses. You can have the uses that are included in your group, talk about those, and then go into how specifically it's been discussed and,
Okay.
how there could be funding for it, how it could be implemented, and
By funding, you're asking us to scope out the potential cost of implementing it and maintaining it, or?
No, I mean, if you're
supposed to
talking
say where we're
about-
going to get the bucks from.
if you're talking about
Who's gonna-
pavilions
who's
or
gonna-
restrooms or something, I mean, that could come out of the general fund. If it's, bike paths, then maybe, GROC is a supporting group for that. We're not looking to come back and say it's $1.2 million to do this, but if we're gonna put 10-foot wide paths through the whole front 9, how, do you think that's gonna happen, or what's an opportunity for that,
and you can ask us that as staff how we would go about doing that if that was our charge, if that was our
Okay.
project,
There's
what's
opportunities.
involved, and we can provide you some feedback on that.
Okay.
Yes, we're not looking for you to do the cost breakdown of what everything is, but if you're talking about, a lodge, I mean, it's a large dollar item. It's not just, grading out an area or doing something like that. I mean, the Trails Committee can do a lot of things with their piece, GROC can do their piece, but if you're talking, a lodge would be...
It's more of if you know something or have a proposal or a thought of how it could be funded or supported long-term, write it down.
Okay.
Maybe not every answer has that.
Since each of us are, oops, I'm sorry.
Groundskeeping could be part of Department of Public Works or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, just so you have a thought of where is this
Right.
going to come from.
Okay.
Obviously, dollars are not unlimited, but
Some things you might have to say
Some-
funding is not required. This would be accounted for under general maintenance in the town budget or something. So.
Or like GROC would be fun, wouldn't be a cost, they would do it voluntarily.
they're a group that we could partner with, or if you know that, we've got the Penfield Trails Committee, we've got, the Boy Scouts of America.
Cross
with
orientation
Christine
course
Club.
could be some Boy Scout doing his Eagle Project or something.
Yeah, just if you've got a thought, is saying, okay, some of this orienteering course, have the Boy Scouts come in and, be part of that and do that.
This is not a thesis. This is just based on our discussions and your knowledge and what we can provide you. Let's kind of get it written down here.
Since we're all part of 2 groups, it's going to be hard, to get together tonight and work on yours. So I'm suggesting we do it by email.
There's 2 ways to do this. There's tonight, if you wanted to spend some time, spend 15 minutes with one group, 15 minutes with another, if those people are here.
Yeah.
And obviously you'll have to do it by email at some point to talk about your discussions and what your thoughts are going to be for each topic. You may have to meet up outside of this or wait for another meeting until our next meeting on the 12th. But at the next meeting, I would propose the same thing, where you allocate a certain amount of time for the top part, and then similarly for the bottom, where we don't just spend all of our time talking about one thing.
Just want to go back to what Tricia was asking about. I think for some of these uses, we wouldn't want to necessarily put everything in group 2 under one section, because the funding and support or implementation of some of these is going to be very different, for say a spray park versus an ice skating rink or something like that. So
Yeah, you may have
they might need to.
Group 2A and then Group 2B.
Broken up.
Or multiple paragraphs, one dealing with spray park, one deals
Right.
with, you know, you may have to break it up, and some of those are going to be more meaty than others. Then
That's like under the topic of, you know, let's call it, well, it's tough to call it athletic, but it's kind of like the athletic and sports groups there, and then you have your recreational uses at the top under that, and then, like you said, ABC, these types of subgroups to that, based on how they kind of mesh together or how similar they are to one another.
and then we can work on formatting once it's all together. If you use Roman numerals and you use letter A, you know, don't get caught up in that part of it. We'll mesh it all together once we have it.
Just content.
Hopefully, if everybody can do it electronic, obviously that's easier for us to then format text-wise and
Please.
cut and paste and move it all over. So I think we've got this already as a Word document. In your Google Docs, you can grab it and just cut and paste in the sections. We filled in the front part of who's in the committee, what the charge was, and put all that stuff in. So we're just looking to kind of start filling in the blanks with that.
And like I said, the one that I sent out made available, let me fix this first. And then we'll get it down to the groups that we have, at least number-wise, and then go from there.
Any other whole group questions?
Eric, did you want to go through some of the stuff you
Yeah, we
have
can
here?
have a quick look at it.
Just for the group. In the meeting folder, Doug, there's a folder I made for what Eric put together for the group on the bike trails.
So this was just something that Ryan had asked for at the last meeting of like, what would a trail system even look like?
And how did you base your path on the cart paths, or just kind of what you thought was
No,
a
it was just
good riding path?
You know, we talked about, you know, trails. I mean, a perimeter loop is usually something
This
that's
is-
interesting. It's a longer
This
trail.
is a biking trail, not a walking.
Could be both.
Could be
Yeah.
both.
There's honestly there's no other parks in the area that have biking only trails. All the trails that exist are for biking and hiking and running, and frankly it would be difficult, especially on this property, to keep people of anyone of
How
at
to
least like
segregate the two.
people who are on foot, keeping them off bike trails. So
The one takes you up along the road and back in, is that correct?
it's not on the road. It wouldn't be on the road. It'd be parallel
the
to
road.
it. I was just trying to lay out a few miles of trails.
What's the blue indicate?
That would be probably
harder
a
terrain.
more intermediate trail.
Okay.
These are all going to be. I think the kind of the goal here is to have some more kind of beginner level trails. So there'd be some intermediate. I don't really see much terrain or anything like that that would result in advanced trails on this property. So, and some of that is by design too. Like if you have I don't know the whole numbers, but the one at the very southwest corner there, that shorter hole, you can see the sand traps kind of right next to the bump there.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
So that one, I remember, you know, that's a pretty steep hill
That's
there.
very steep.
Yeah.
So you can make that a more technical trail by making it more, you know, go up a steeper section of that hill versus cutting across the hill and making the grades lower. So a lot of it's just, you know, by choice. If you make it go straight down the hill and you put a big jump in the middle, that's more of an advanced trail. So this is just kind of
I like
an
it,
attempt
good
at
job.
what.
No, it's
I like
great to
it.
have a picture as you start the conversation.
The one to the left there, the blue one that's 0.6 miles, I'm not familiar with that, the top of that, is that usable or is that too much of a ravine? or
No,
something?
that was, this one I actually kind of know a little bit because Beth and Trish and I walked back there, and there's some pretty steep hills, so it would probably just stay more up at the top.
It looks like
And there
from
was
the
like
road.
there was a ridge back there, and I might be totally off on where those are, but it would need to kind of snake around a little bit more like that in order to.
Closer to the road as it goes up. which I don't know if it's north, I think.
Yeah, that's basically
It's all like a
unusable.
ravine or something?
Yeah, yeah.
From
That's,
the road, it looks like it, but I didn't know.
yeah.
So Eric, you're saying every yellow line up there is a bike trail?
And the blue
The
ones too.
green.
And the blue?
Green and
And the
blue,
blue?
yeah.
Because
So
I
these
mean,
would be hiking.
I always pictured
Biking trails.
the backside to kind of be the bike trail, walking trails, because it's so diverse and, because if you, I appreciate what you did here, and I know
put
what
some
you're
on the
trying
front
to do.
nine just to show what
Yeah,
it.
my fear, yeah, if you did that in the front nine, then we can't, you're really limited as what you could do. Like now you
Yeah.
can't really do fields, you know, you couldn't do athletic fields and.
Well, you
and
could,
that
the
type of thing.
perimeter
I feel
ones.
like
still
having
The perimeter
be
ones, yeah, I agree, the
Yeah.
perimeter ones.
The
I
cut
think are
across
good.
ones, you never know, it might fit in somewhere, who knows?
Great start.
What's the
think you-
perimeter distance? Do you know?
1.6.
The whole perimeter is 1.6?
Yeah. So the only reason I had a couple of trails just cutting through is that there will be people who will not want to go out on this as a 1.5 mile loop. They
It might
will
be
want
too
to
much
have
for them.
a shorter loop or something like that. So there's going to be some area where you're going to be able to get a trail from the parking lot over to the elbow there, where it's not going to cut across athletic fields or something like that. You'll be able to get a path through there. It may not be that straight or in that particular place. Again, conceptual.
I got you.
As a
And
little
those
bit
would be more
frankly-
leisurely. Those would be more, so people could actually even just walk them, you know, like,
Yes.
because that's more flat land over there.
If we had handicap paths
That would be,
paved, would they fit inside that area of space that's, you know,
Where the
the
line
second
is.
and third, first, second, and third holes, the golf holes?
yeah, we were looking
Yeah.
at
Where would you-
that as
where would you try to
handicap
position
might go,
Yeah.
which is currently hole 1 and 2. Would look like it could make a loop for a handicap trail.
Is 1 and 2 down on the south side? of it?
1 or 2,
No,
Over by the S.
Right,
Yeah, where
That's
the-
3.
where the plus markers there.
the plus
Okay.
marker's not on 3, is it?
That was 3. There's,
Yeah.
that's 2 is the one you were
Those are
just
1 and 2.
touching. No, actually,
that's
that's
three.
3.
That's
2 is there,
three.
1 is the next
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, right. 1 is out.
That's
right in the
1.
middle, right.
2, and that's,
What happens to the cart paths then?
well, that's kind of what I'm wondering. I would
Yeah.
sort of like to see some sort of cart paths where
Connect them or
wheelchairs could
something.
go out and around
Yeah.
and come back.
Great.
I mean, it sounds like that's something.
It would have to
we
be
need
near, it would have to start from the parking lot.
Well, that was, you mean to the perimeter trail stuff?
No, it'd probably sit mostly
center.
Yeah, that's
inside,
what-
inside the
yeah,
perimeter
right.
trail.
That's the reason we looked at hole 1 and 2, it was starting near the parking lot, would be
Yeah.
a loop going up, you know, up one side of the tree and
They
down the
might be
other
able
side.
to take into account the car paths and use those somehow, I
That's
guess.
Well,
what you
those,
could, yeah.
again, if you look at the map,
They don't go,
cart paths
they're
that
not
are on there.
continuous.
No, they're not yet.
Big gaps in them, yeah.
In the back, they're continuous,
Right.
but not in
Cart
the
paths
front.
that are on the map
pretty
that we're
much.
looking at.
There's a gap in the back.
There's some
What's
gaps.
most vivid to
Thought when
us,
we
so we're
walked
not
it, it
sure
was
what
continuous.
exactly
There was a-
the
There is,
condition is.
there is one continuous
On 1
loop
and
that you
2.
go around, but it doesn't go every hole up and down.
No, it doesn't
It's
go
just-
every hole, but there is a
Oh, no,
loop.
no,
kind of one.
Right.
There's paths on individual holes that, you know,
Oh, yeah,
don't go
yeah,
very far.
yeah.
Right.
And I think
And
there
there's
would,
some, yeah.
sorry. I think there would need to be discussion too for like, I mean, that's probably, it sounds like it's gonna be in group number 1 with me and Beth and Terry, right? So we'll
Yeah.
talk about that, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of implications with the cart paths of like, do you let them go as they are? Do you pave them? You know, it's not gonna be free to, you know, to pave a path. There's a lot of discontinuous portions of that path. You
Yeah.
know, so would you pave those in order to make a loop? You know, how would you do that? There's,
Well, it's something
A
for
lot of
everyone to
thought.
keep in mind as you're doing this. You have to remember that this isn't, your task isn't to do a master
Right.
plan for every
Right.
element.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
It's
exactly.
to briefly discuss the
Recommendation of-
opportunities and the recommendation and why it would be a benefit
Mhm.
for the property. So
Yeah.
always keep in mind that the handicap accessible trail is definitely a great recommendation. Don't have to get into the weeds about where, how, and what exact mile it
That
needs
would
to
have
be
to
or
be
what goal.
engineered because of slopes and everything.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
To meet the standards.
There's a lot that goes into all of it. Don't get too deep into it because you might not get yourself out of it once you've gone too far in with that topic. So keep it, try to keep everything at a high level as you're going through this.
Could you slide the map down so we can see just a little bit more north? Or is that the best?
We gotta go to a different map for that. What are you looking for?
Well, where you have the path going around, there's still a lot of property further north than that, all the way
There's
up to
not-
Atlantic.
It's,
It's
It's
just
just
The buffer?
But could
Or no?
the trail go up around that to add it to make it a 2-mile trail? Because a lot of people like to walk 2 miles, you know, like my doctor said walk 2 miles or whatever.
if you think about what you're adding, all you're adding are the 2 legs up. You don't be adding
Right.
Yeah,
another
that's true.
100,
Right.
200 feet.
Yeah,
It wouldn't go,
Trail.
yeah, it wouldn't go a
Yeah.
quarter mile.
you have to put a swiggle in it.
Yeah.
So the trails that are on the back 9 is about 4 miles of trails, which if you took the trail corridor, as it's called, which is usually going to be about 3 to 4 feet wide, all of this would add up to the space of about a high school soccer field. So these lines are way thicker than it would actually be on the.
That's a good point, though, to get written in. That's, you know, there ought to be some 1 mile and 2 mile or mile and a half.
Yeah, markers.
And markers, yeah.
Yeah, this
Cross-country,
perimeter
track could be done in this too.
Sure.
Yeah, this is
You know,
1.7.
1, 2, 3. 2 miles.
Actually, on the front 9, there already is a cross-country course that they staked out. We
Oh,
have a
is it?
scout
Really?
project that
For
already
skiing
did.
or
Really?
running?
Wow.
Yeah,
Running?
For running.
Cool.
How far? What do they have?
I knew you'd ask me that. I don't know.
Is it a race?
I want to say it's like a mile and a half. I want
Is
to
it?
say it's around a mile.
Yeah, that's what like 7th and 8th grade. I think they do a mile and a
I
half
think
and
it's a
then 2
mile and a
miles.
half. And they put in the ground, they put PVC markers so that they can just go out and just stake the course.
Oh, cool.
So there's nothing permanent, it's just a stake in the ground.
Yeah.
So that they can run from flag to flag. They did that in the
Oh.
fall.
Well, it's way safer than them running down 5-mile line.
Yeah, yeah. And waiting for a stop sign.
Good discussion.
Yeah.
No, I think that was a lot of work, thank you. Looks great.
I had a couple of issues with that.
Yeah, people were asking about, well, what does a trail actually look like?
Looks dark up.
Yeah, it's,
Doesn't look like that.
That's what it looks like.
It's supposed to be,
Yeah.
when you run it at night, it
In
looks
the
like
fog, it looks like that.
and I took these there's 2 pictures from Dryer Road Park and 2 from Whiting Road Nature Preserve, because those are, I think, good examples. These are actually my boys riding it, Dryer Road. So the trail there, it looks very wide, but really it's just because it's in the fall and that's a muddy area, but the trail tread itself is only a foot and a half wide there.
It helps to have trees.
It looks so nice, yeah. it
And
looks
then this is Whiting Road. The trails at Whiting Road are a lot more like a mowed path with a like a single track dirt tread through the middle there. So you could actually ride. You can ride bikes there 2 abreast if you want to, but that's not as typical for these kind of trails. I think that was just what they decided on for how they were gonna build trails there. They're gonna mow a path, but typically, hiking and biking paths are not necessarily mowed.
Now, and this, do they have to brush cut to keep
They must, because
to keep
it
that,
stays like that.
stabilize that? Yeah.
And if that was something that we were gonna do here, again, that would be something that the town would have to likely pay for. I don't know what it costs to run a mower for half a day to do something like that, but.
Yeah, it's not the minutia we're looking to get,
Okay.
just saying, as part of this, it would have a bi-weekly mow, along the path or something like that along the 1.6 mile trail or something like that. So at least it kind of put some semblance to it. And if we come down to it later on, we can say, okay, that's a guy in a mower going at this pace. It's a day's job to mow all the paths in there every 2 weeks or.
Yeah. There's trade-offs too. People feel like they can go faster on a trail like this because there's less kind of obstacles. But even if you just allowed that to grow up and there was into weeds and stuff like that, even though it's there's nothing different that you would hit there that could hurt you or anything like that, people still just,
Slow down.
they go slower because there's just more stuff that's closer to them. So.
Okay.
Any other questions from the group, as a group right now? Feel pretty comfortable about what you have to do going forward? Would you guys like some time tonight to, if you do have your group members here, to start some preliminary discussions? I mean, we'll leave it up to you, but we can, like Mark said earlier, we can wrap up our formal discussion tonight and just kind of leave it to you guys now to do your own thing, if there aren't any more questions before our next meeting. And again, for the next meeting, try to come with some initial feedback or more questions for your topics. Ask us questions between now and then as you're reviewing the information. Try to meet with your members if you can. If not, communicate with emails. You have everyone's email. If you need someone's email, ask us. We can give it to you. But anything else?
My email, by the way, on the main sheet is incorrect. I think it's OBT and it should be OTB, I believe. It's
Take care of that.
on the one page. You're getting everything, I'm getting everything.
Yeah, it's just listed wrong on the
It's
sheet.
listed
So
wrong.
if they go back to their emails, they should be able to get you.
Yeah, it's right. Regular email will get right.
But that's a good idea. I'll take the sheet. No problem. I'll fix it, and I'll send that back out in the next email with this, so that you guys have a fresh copy of that if you need to get a hold of someone.
Update the sheet with
Update
listings of who's
that,
got what.
what Doug was doing tonight. Thank you, Doug, for doing all that on the fly.
No problem. I'll take this, you said too. right?
Yep,
Yep.
we'll get you fresh stuff tomorrow.
Do you want us working directly on the?
It's up to you. It's up to you. I'll give it to you as a Word document. You can do what you want with it. Obviously, we want to try and plug it back into this in that area, but if you feel you want to change something, like I said earlier, with those subheadings or something, feel free to do it.
If you want to copy it to like a Google Doc so you can all work on it.
Yeah.
And
So
from your
is
own
this a
home.
Google Doc right now?
No, it's Word. Would you
It's a
like
Word
it to
doc.
be?
We have a Word.
I can
Sure, I
can
mean,
set it up in both formats, so you guys can copy and paste it and take it into your group, or use
Certainly
it
makes
as a
it
Word
easier to
document.
collaborate if it's a Google Doc.
It depends on the members in your group, but we can always make that available.
Okay. Well, as it stands now, your next meeting is March 12th. We'll have that penciled in for now, and then we'll come back with some initial information of that, and then we'll see where we go from the 12th. If everybody's coming together, then maybe we only need one or two more to kind of come back together, go through the sections, read them, and then collaborate from there. So we'll kind of play it by ear as we.
Yeah, not every group has to, come back as a group, and everyone as a group, the committee decides, do we all agree with what's been written here after you've put in your pieces? Doesn't that just be, the group has the final say, so keep that in mind.
Okay. Well, with that, unless there's any last questions, we'll wrap up the formal section of tonight. PCTV can close out that piece, and feel free to stay and take a spot if you want to at least start strategizing, planning from here. If you want to meet with your members offline or do something different, do that as well.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you. Good meeting.